îl introduc pe următorul vorbitor care este alături de noi. So I will switch in English because our next speaker is, I could say, a friend of mine, because we shared for, I think, last 5 years, we shared some opinions inside an advisory board in Forum International de Cybersecurity from Lille, I think the biggest cyber event in Europe. It's a personality in cybersecurity. It's a name, an important name, probably the most important name in Luxembourg when it comes to cybersecurity. And the most important position he has for us is the fact that he is the chairperson of the European Cybersecurity Competence Center from Bucharest. So, Pascal Steichen, thank you very much for being with us. Are you hearing us?
Yes, hello.
Bonjour, comment ça va?
Can you hear me?
Yep. You have the floor. Pascal, you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Absolutely brilliant.
Perfect.
So, we have a full room of with CIO Council members. The floor is yours, Pascal.
Thank you very much, Hugo, my old friend. As you said, indeed, we shared some very interesting advisory board of this week, and I think we will continue to share this experience. Dear ladies and gentlemen, I have the great honor to open this year's CIO Council Summit. So thank you for having me here today. And as Hugo mentioned, my name is Pascal Steichen. I'm in charge of the largest cybersecurity agency in Luxembourg, and recently was elected chairperson of the ECCC, the European Cybersecurity Competence Center, that will be located here in Bucharest. But more about this a bit later. I have prepared a few slides. Let's share them. Voila, you should be able to see the slides now. Perfect. Okay. So, cyber and the CIO. As you might expect, based on my career, I will talk about cybersecurity. Cybersecurity and, I would say, different concerns that we face these days with new technology, with emerging technologies. To start with, let's start with the bad news, and sorry for that. I will promise to conclude with a positive note. But what are the prime threats these days? So the bad things that happen on the internet. You will probably know all this already, but let's go through the 3 main threats that are out there. Ransomware. Every 11 seconds there is a ransomware attack, and according to a recent study, there is an estimate of a loss of 2 billion euros in 2021. This is enormous. This is enormous risk for our business, for the technology business. Why are we in this situation? Why are all these ransomware attacks possible? Well, the answer is manifold. First of all, and I think you know this as well, there is really a problem with email.
I'm looking for something on May 3rd.
It turns out a big part of getting things done is making a...
I had some noise in the stream. So the answer to this is manifold. As I said, email is one of the problems today. In fact, email is being used so intensively for doing business, and however, email is very old technology and it's very hard to secure, unfortunately. So we definitely have to really take care about securing email more, and this can only be done together, because it's a system that it depends on all of us. Each single email server in this whole network needs to be taken care of. Then there is also the massive digitization that is going on in all the companies, which obviously has very many benefits, but also creates multiple attack vectors, as we call this. So creates a huge platform for criminals to attack, to try to enter systems, to connect to systems, to identify vulnerabilities, which are found in many different places. Another aspect which is also very important, and which we see a lot when dealing with incidents, when helping companies to respond to their incidents, is the homogeneous architectures and infrastructure that we see. Especially you CIO people, you have this obviously this objective to be efficient, to have a performant system, and having a unique operating system, for instance, makes this obviously easier and faster and easier manageable. However, from a security perspective, this is not a good thing, because it will also make the criminal become active way faster and make it very easy for the criminals to encrypt all the data and ask for a ransom. So we have these many different aspects that make it that ransomware is such a successful attack. Then on the second biggest cyber attack or cyber risk that is out there at the moment is, I would say, crisis related or situational related attacks. Crises like COVID or natural catastrophes or wars, but also I would say mega events like Olympic Games or largely mediated topics are always a very high breeding ground for malicious activities. But also internal stress situations. The companies that are in merger or in a change process are in a certain stress situation, and criminals will abuse this. They will really use these messages, abuse this situation to attack employees, your colleagues, yourself, and make them click on that malicious link that lets them in. Because at the end of the day, it's way more easy, and criminals have definitely found out it's way more easy to attack we as humans than systems. Because we have emotions, we react similarly since many thousands of years. The third top 3 threats that have been identified in many different studies is data compromise or data breaches. You probably have read about a lot of data breaches in millions and millions of data that have been breached, email address, passwords, or so ever. Often it is said that data is the new oil, that this will make the economy run in the future, and already does it, to be honest. However, data can also be seen more like uranium, very powerful, but also very dangerous for our digital society. Because what we see is the more data you collect, the more you can lose, and the more damage you can create to your employees, to your customers, to your company at the end of the day. And the more effort, obviously, also the remediation will take. So we don't need more data. What we need is more information, more intelligence, more value out of this data. And it's, I would say, not always AI which will help us. There are very interesting and very good steps that have been achieved lately, but technology always has downsides. So the emerging technologies that you all know, that are really, I would say, leading the evolution at the moment. Obviously, there is cloud, there is AI, IoT, the Internet of Things, the digitization of industries, 5G, 6G, all the communication aspects, and last but not least, quantum computing. All of these have very promising and were very beneficial effects if they were used in a careful way. All of these always have their downsides. Cloud, as you know, it's nothing else than someone else's computer, and you have to trust this someone else to take care about your data as you would do it. You have to trust those entities to really make sure that they secure your data, your infrastructure, your company value. AI is a bit similar. It has so many interesting features. It can manage or analyze massive amount of data, but all this is based on algorithms. And these algorithms, they have to learn how to analyze, what results we can get out of this data. And there we have seen a lot of examples of biases of these artificial intelligence algorithms, sometimes unconscious, but also sometimes malicious. So if you train your AI data to always have a result that your service provider, for instance, expects, so that he can sell his product, well, you are in a bad situation. You cannot really trust this infrastructure. So it's again an important aspect to analyze, to look into how are these algorithms dealt with, how is the data trained, are these things coming from trusted sources. And then obviously quantum, I would say that is yet another big topic. Quantum computing will really change the game, will really change the paradigm. It will make computing so much faster that criminals today already are having or are working on concept of steal now, decrypt later. Because data that has been stolen today, which cannot be decrypted with current technology in 5, 10, or even less years, maybe this same data can be decrypted using quantum technology. And often data has some years of value and can have a damage on your business reputation when abused or when exposed to the outside. So decisions taken today will impact the future, will impact the cyber future. The good news is that we can still take good decisions to impact the future in a positive way. The topics, most of them I already mentioned them, which really should be taken care of today. As I said, the communication aspects, the email, especially the email part, where we see 70, 80, even more % of all the volume of attacks use the email infrastructure. So think about implementing SPF, DKIM, DMARC, DNSSEC, SMIME, and all these different protocols. Yes, it is very complex. It is very time-consuming, but it's worth the effort. It will enable securing against 80% of all the attacks. Also, what we see, there is a real trend to go into other ways of communication, like secure instant messaging or these kind of things. Then what I mentioned, architecture, infrastructure, heterogeneity is becoming very, very important. And we have seen it, for instance, in Ukraine. The internet, the communication in Ukraine did not break down. I haven't done the detailed analysis, but one conclusion we can take is because there are many different telecom providers in Ukraine. And so this heterogeneity of the network made it more resilient, made it more stable to external perturbations. Encryption, obviously, with the quantum computing coming, and especially the PKI encryption. And PKI today is almost everywhere. I mentioned the trusted sources for AI, and last but not least, invest in people. And I mean, not only investing into internal people, for training people, raising awareness, which is obviously very important, but you all know this, but also invest in the community. You probably have heard about the Log4j vulnerability. Well, this was a community problem. It was a very small open source project which has been maintained by a few people on a voluntary basis. And yes, they are voluntary. They not always have the time and motivation to fix everything very fast. Well, their little unintention made it a really big issue globally. So think about maybe investing also in such communities, making sure that the open source solutions that are part of your products, are part of your infrastructure, that you check how they are managed and maybe help those people manage it better. This is also which at the European level, we really would like to address in the next years. And as you know, there are now, very soon, there are 2 European agencies, ENISA, which you all know already, and the newly created ECCC. For me, this is Team Cyber for Europe, and together, ENISA and ECCC will make sure, will help, will in collaboration with the private sector, because public-private collaboration is really key, make sure that the internet gets a better place, gets a safer place, and that we avoid the so to say cyber crash in a recent future. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Pascal, for a very insightful presentation. Let me just asking you a question. It appears that the internet looks like a very dangerous ecosystem, full of cyber criminals. Even an email system, you know, it's the most dangerous system at the end of the day. What do you think? Do you think we need more regulation? Do you think we need to regulate more this environment? And if yes, how this cope with the freedom of speech? Let me ask you.
Yes, I would say more regulation has always been, I would say, more like a last resort solution, at least in Europe, in democratic countries. Unfortunately, yes, the internet definitely is at that stage that we need more regulation, and we see regulation. But what we see as well is that we see different type of regulation that we have before. Regulation in the new type of regulation, GDPR, NIS Directive, DORA, CAR, Cyber Resilience Act, and all these things that are there, that are coming, they are based on a so-called risk approach. So this regulation does not mean automatically that freedoms are being reduced. It gives a certain pack of recommendations and also a certain level of needed compliance, obviously, but it also gives the freedom for everybody to evaluate, okay, what is the most efficient, the most feasible for me? How much risk can I take? How much risk can I reduce using these regulations? And obviously, what is the minimum I have to do, because else the regulation would not be there. So it is. I think the balance is quite well managed at the moment. Yes, there are many regulations also coming, but at least at the EU level, I think this paradigm shift of how regulations are being done is there. Also on the regulator side, they really most of them try to be helpful, and not only are there to do sanctions or this kind of thing. Obviously, this is also needed, but I would say the carrot is preferred than the stick.
All right, thank you very much. Pascal Steichen, thank you very much for being with us with the CIO Council. We will monitor your activity actually in Bucharest, and I hope next time be physically present because we will have a lot of meetings and activities. Thank you very much, Pascal.
Thank you to you, and wishing you a very good rest of the conference. Thank you.
Thank you.